Beware of new construction. Look, there are many pros and cons to both new construction and resale, and most of us are led to believe that there are more pros than cons with new construction, but there is one glaring con that surpasses all other cons: builder delays. The reason for this is multifaceted. Builder delays can get really bad really fast. This story is one that you don't want to miss as I dive deep into the details of a client's transaction firsthand. I even interview them at the end, so stick around to get their opinion and find out which builder is it here in Georgia. Hey, Tim Trevathan with Tim Trevathan Homes here and Keller Williams Realty in North Metro Atlanta. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and welcome back if this isn't your first time. You're in for a treat. So, it all began with us being under contract since April of 2022. During the nearly 9 months of waiting for my client's home to be completed, I watched their home get built, which went smooth the entire time until around October, and we noticed something off about the front porch. Take a look at this and tell me what you think. Notice the columns? Aren't they crooked? Wait a minute. Are they crooked or is something else crooked? Believe it or not, they poured the cement crooked, which is why the columns appear as if they were installed wrong. Isn't that crazy? The good thing is that we requested this to be fixed, and fortunately the builder did. They actually demolished the concrete and poured new cement with the correct measurements. But one thing I learned immediately at this point in the transaction is that it's important to stop by and check on the home from time to time. Just because it's new construction doesn't mean the builder will be immaculate in the process. So from here on out, I recommend to all my clients that at least one of us, whether it's me personally or them, needs to go visit the property sometimes to check on the process. So why now? Don't we have an inspection later? That is true. However, come to find out, the builder told us that basically if we had not notified them of this at the time that we did, it would have been too late to make this change even during the inspection process. Unreal. So after this roadblock passed, we enter into the final weeks before closing. It gets better, right? Hold on. When we got to the final 2 weeks before closing, all hell broke loose. On November 7th, we received an email from the builder stating that our pre-walkthrough orientation would happen on November 28th and that the closing would be on December 5th. Our goal at the time was to ask the builder if we could do the pre-walk a week earlier on the 22nd before Thanksgiving, because that week my clients were off from their work due to the holiday. When we asked, they did try to accommodate, but it was difficult to get a clear-cut answer if the 22nd would work because it all depended on certain items that needed to be installed in the house. When we got 2 to 3 days before the pre-walk, they couldn't confirm if we could do the pre-walk on the day they initially agreed with us. When he finally gave us a certain answer that November 22nd wasn't going to work, it was 1 day before. So yeah, this made things more of a headache, specifically because my buyer, the wife, is a teacher and she needs at least a 2-week notice to secure a substitute teacher. So by the time we were notified on the 21st that we couldn't do the walkthrough the next day, we couldn't just reschedule for the builder's original pre-walk date of the 28th because of needing the 2-week advance notice. It gets worse. Our plan B was to ask the builder for a pre-walk date of that coming Saturday, the 26th. But he said his crew didn't work on that day to finish up the different finishing touches needed in the house to do a full pre-walk. So we asked for a time after 5 p.m. sometime during the week, since that's the only time my buyers can do it due to their work schedule. However, the builder told us the latest time he could do is 2 p.m. since it takes up to 3 hours to do it and it gets dark around 5 p.m. We just couldn't really figure out why this was the case as far as what made it difficult to schedule it at 5. So what did we do? We actually had to escalate our case by contacting the builder's corporate office by email, and the district manager made the call to force the builder to do a walkthrough with us at 5 p.m. on November 29th. So one important thing to note is that prior to showing up, I made sure to ask the builder when would be the best time to do an inspection. He informs me of the items that needed to be done still, including the vent hood, kitchen backsplash, bathroom tile, paintwork, trim, lubricant for the windows, crown molding, and several other items. So through this questioning, I just wanted to get a specific date for the inspection, but it seemed like it was more unclear by me just asking. Finally, I just threw out some dates on the phone and asked, how about Thursday or Friday? And finally he said, that's fine. So the next day at the pre-walk, I told the builder I was able to schedule the inspection for Friday morning. And to my surprise, he says that he won't be able to complete the repairs that the inspector might find in time for us to close as planned on Monday, December 5th. More frustration ensues at this point because he told me specifically that Friday would work for an inspection time. We could still do it, but the major items would not be able to be done before closing. We took our chances because it's new construction and we couldn't possibly see there being 5 to 6 major issues. There's also this thing called a survival list that if it's 1 or 2 major items, then they give us an affidavit agreeing to come back and handle them after closing. At least that's what I thought, but this builder is a little bit different from other past builders that I've worked with. So I went ahead and hired an inspector who gave us the report blazing fast. Basically the same day, 10 minutes after the inspection was done, which usually inspection reports won't come back until 24 hours later or later that same night at best. So I turned it into the builder immediately on that Friday, the day of inspection, around 1:30 p.m. So I'm thinking he could work on it that afternoon, but get this, builder texts me back saying he received it and he will review it. Over the course of the weekend, I didn't hear a follow-up from him on that Friday evening, all day Saturday, and not until late Sunday did we finally hear back from him. He says that we are likely going to have to delay our closing due to the item. None of the items I was aware of were considered major, so we were all disappointed by this news. He said there would be a possibility of closing the next day on the 5th as planned, but that he would have to see in the morning of how the house looks. Before lunchtime, we received a call from the builder stating that we won't be able to close on time. Why? Because it was raining and the roofer wouldn't come and repair one shingle that we needed repaired. Finally, we had to accept our fate of a delay for a final walkthrough date of Wednesday, December 7th, and a closing date of the following day on the 8th. We were lucky to be able to do this based on my client's schedule given their work, and we were able to secure the last time slot from the closing attorney of 4:30 p.m., which means my clients would have to rush there from their work to make it happen. But let's just take a step back and let me explain all the inconveniences that arose from this builder delay. First, while my buyer was able to follow the postponement of their closing date, there was no guarantee that that was going to be able to work out. Again, we got lucky. Second, by changing the closing date, that means they had to take off from work a day that they could have been earning money from their jobs. Third, my buyer had furniture ready to be delivered on the 9th, which means any later of a closing date would mean the furniture would have to sit outside due to liability reasons. In other words, they couldn't keep like a refrigerator inside the house. It would have to sit in the driveway. Who knows what could happen to it. Fourth, with my buyer doing financing to purchase, they already had wired their funds for closing, which could have had to be reversed by the lender, redo the numbers on their closing disclosure to include an additional 3 days, and pay another 30-day wiring fee for wiring the funds again. It was a huge hassle to say the least, and all from a builder delay. I will say that some good things came out of it in the end, but not without relentless efforts from my buyers and I with communication and repeated incessant requests to the builder. Why don't we hear from my clients their take in the end?
So, all right, it's a Thursday, early evening, and I'm here with my clients, Jihan and Jennifer. We just closed on their home, yay! And it's a beautiful home. It's been a long journey. We started back in, what was it, March, April?
March, April, yeah.
Yeah, it feels longer than that, honestly. They bought a new construction home, a very lovely, marvelous looking home, and just want to get y'all's thoughts on what was the process like? Was it kind of what you expected, or were there some surprises along the way? You wanna go first?
I definitely think it's not for the faint of heart. If you don't like stress, don't do it. It was smooth. I mean, I think the hardest part was the bidding process just because it was so crazy in the beginning. It was smooth for like the months that they were building. The end was crunch time. there were some choice emails sent, but other than that, in the end, we got a great home. Tim really helped us out there, so.
For
Your
sure.
turn?
Sweet. Yeah, I think most of the stress was probably in the last like 3-week stretch. Just kind of going back and forth trying to get communications, like that was really difficult. Thankfully, Tim and my wife Jennifer, they're both like really on it, so I don't have to say anything to the builders or like any of their associates. So yeah, it went pretty well because I think we were kind of very like proactive about getting information from them, any progress checks, things like that. But yeah, I would say I won't think about buying a house for a long time. It was pretty stressful still. Yeah, but no, we're really happy with how the house turned out. So
It's good. That's what's important, that the house is good and it's complete at the time of closing. We did have some different delays, perhaps maybe miscommunications. What were, I guess, like the biggest challenges other than what we already talked about?
I think just us as the client's version of attention to detail, especially with a brand new home, versus the builder's idea of attention to detail, especially if they're very different. I think that's why partly the last 3 weeks have been so stressful. I mean, our differences in views eventually had to converge, and
Good
it
point.
did.
And I would say too that the one thing I learned from this transaction as a realtor, I try to be knowledgeable and guide my clients, but sometimes I'm learning on the job too, is just to be relentless. That even if we think things need to be done, or oh, this is not too bad, we don't have to mention it to the builder, mention it anyway. It's their home. You're buying a huge investment, and it makes sense to ask them for every little detail of repair, modification. Because once you're closed, and that's it. And so that was one thing I learned.
Yes, definitely.
yeah, I think you guys put it pretty well. I just, man, there's so many things that go into a house that we don't like, as like first-time home buyers, we really didn't know, and so we were kind of learning as we go. So like you said, we weren't sure if we could ask for certain things, but yeah, I think definitely just try your luck. And the worst they'll say is no. Best case scenario, you get something out of it. Your house is like closer to what you want it to be.
Well put. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, guys, so there you have it. That wasn't so bad, was it? I know I had a little bit of clickbait there for you guys to watch this video. All in all, new construction builders are doing their best to make sure to provide a top quality experience when it comes to building the home and completing it in a timely manner, communicating well, and just making the overall process as smooth as possible. Yes, there were hiccups along the way. Yes, there are roadblocks and things that we didn't expect that ended up surprising us. But again, I think that when you think about the pros and cons of new construction, consider the possible cons that could really drain you emotionally, have you stressing, having you worry about if the process is going to go smoothly. So I hope this video was informational and you guys really enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.